That, all right, at 6 o'clock, if you would all join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That's my son.
Sort out.
24 game.
All right, good evening and welcome to the Greater Rutland County Supervisory Union meeting. It is Tuesday, September 5th. The first order of business would be the approval of the agenda.
Make the motion.
Motion by Mike.
Second.
Any discussion?
We're doing still small meeting.
Cool.
All right.
All those in favor?
Just checking here.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. General public comment. Do we have any public? We don't have any public. All right, moving on to minutes. Approval of the minutes of August 1st. The motion will be in order. Motion by Mike. Discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Approval of warrants. Receive your warrant via your GRCSU email. All questions should be directed to Lewis. A motion will be in order for approval of warrants.
Make the motion.
Motion by Tina. Discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Superintendent's report. Chris?
Thanks, Lisa. Apologize for the length of the report, just for some information to include. A lot of this is for informational only, but we did have the start of the school year, as we're all aware. Went off really well. Made it out to every school on the first day of school. It's great to see staff and students back in the building. Had a little bit nicer weather than we're having this week. A little bit warm, but as I was saying to some of our admins today, I think our relatively mild summer has made these next couple of days seem a little bit warmer than we have, because we forgot what a summer day feels like. So it's just, but we have spoken with each of the admin. The admin are aware that they are taking precautions, just making sure that kids have water and access to water breaks, and we're looking at recess as well as outdoor PE and after school activities, and we are following the VPA hot weather policy with regard to this. So we are making adjustments as needed. So, but it's, like I said, it's been a great start to the school year. A couple of things in here. As tradition at our fall, back to school orientation program, we recognize two individuals as GRCSU Teachers of the Year. For this year, for 2023, we recognize Poultney High School's Dawn Sarley, as well as Proctor High School's Patty Ryan. And I don't know if you want me to read what was written about them. I think it's nice. So sure. So I'll just quickly read just so people who are viewing this at home can hear. But for Dawn, the GRCSU is pleased to recognize Dawn Sarley as one of the recipients of this year's Teacher of the Year Award. Dawn is an educator with a remarkable commitment to personal and professional growth. Each passing year, this dedicated teacher actively seeks new challenges and opportunities for self-improvement. Whether assuming a fresh advisory role, collaborating with fellow middle school educators to devise innovative activities for students, or fervently advocating for her pupils, her unwavering positivity and ever-present smile shine as distinguishing hallmarks. Most notably, she recently assumed the pivotal advisory position for the Student Council, propelling them into a formidable voice representing the students of Poultney High School. Her stewardship has transformed the council into a sought-after institution, with students actively vying for membership due to its newfound success. Furthermore, she played a pivotal role in spearheading the Poultney High School parent-teacher organization, orchestrated a highly successful cornhole tournament in March, and coordinated numerous other events in its inaugural year. Not content with confining her efforts solely to her current students, she has also served as one of the advisors for Girls on the Run, fostering connections with prospective students who will grace her future classrooms. Even during the summer break, she remains engaged, dedicating her time to coaching summer softball. Entering her classroom, one immediately senses a warm and nurturing environment. Visitors on Friday are encouraged to bring a book, as Fridays are dedicated to reading. This exceptional educator nurtures robust bonds. Robust bonds with their students. I apologize, Dawn. With their students while simultaneously establishing rigorous learning expectations and standards. For her numerous exemplary qualities and contributions to the educational community, It was a great honor that we nominate Don Sarley as the Teacher of the Year for 2023. Our second candidate or recipient was Patty Ryan from Proctor High School. The GRCSU is pleased to recognize Patty Ryan as one of the recipients of this year's Teacher of the Year award. Patty is an excellent teacher and advocate for math education. Patty has worked endlessly for the students at Proctor Junior Senior High School and brings them the most powerful learning experiences. She makes learning fun and continues to innovate for the sake of students. Many a student will quip that Miss Ryan needs $1 million raise for her dedication to math instruction. This year, Miss Ryan single-handedly introduced 2 new math initiatives to Proctor High School students, and as a result, 4 Proctor students earned statewide recognition, 2 earning recognition for writing and math, and 2 for their expertise in investing in the stock market. Miss Ryan's financial literacy class is a huge draw for students. She has made the class a model for authentic and applicable learning. One of Miss Ryan's colleagues recently said, she's a creative force who is constantly thinking of new ways to pull students into her content. For example, at the close of this school year, she had a hands-on lesson that centered on the mathematical development of student-created mini golf holes, and to top it off, she brought in a portable mini golf field for our students to play on. On our second to last day of school, laughter and fun could be heard through every open window as students played and enjoyed a fun round of 9 holes. Not only does Miss Ryan make learning fun, but she is also highly focused on student growth and achievement. She continuously reviews her math practice in light of student outcomes and data. Ms. Ryan is a steadfast educator who is highly regarded by everyone who works with her. She continues to lead at Proctor High School through professionalism, flexibility, and always putting her students first. Ms. Ryan has worn many hats throughout her educational career, and these experiences have no doubt shaped the amazing teacher she has become. It is an honor to nominate Ms. Ryan for the GRCSU Teacher of the Year. Once again, I just want to congratulate Dawn Sarley and Patty Ryan, who are recognized as our 2023 recipients of GRCSU Teacher of the Year.
May I ask you what Don Sarley teaches?
Dawn is a middle school teacher at Fulton High School.
What subject? I was just curious.
Good question. So,
Language arts.
thank you.
Yep.
So, thank you. So, I didn't want to just throw some. Thanks, Linda.
No problem.
All right. And so the rest, like I said, we had to set some other information. You do see we did set a bit of a vision for the 23-24 school year in here. I just thought it's important for the board to understand that this was also shared with our staff. It's set around 4 basic goals or statements. We feel that this year that our goal is to ensure that all GRCSU students have access to high quality instruction and learning opportunities on a daily basis. To ensure that all GRCSU students will demonstrate academic growth, math and literacy over the course of the 2023-2024 school year. Ensure that all of our students and staff feel welcome, affirmed, safe, and a part of our school communities. And lastly, ensure that we as an SU have established channels of clear and effective communication in our schools and SU amongst staff and our school communities. And you'll see this is echoed in our school SIPs as well as in our strategic plan. But we had, like I said, we shared this at our SU-wide orientation, just so our staff fully understand what our goals are and where we're heading for this year. So,
Great. Questions?
I had 2. Well, one's a comment. I just want to say that I'm really happy that we have the Title I presentations this year. That's great. So good job planning those. And then the second thing I wanted to ask about, we received as parents from Rutland Town a letter concerning Fast Bridge being the main that's used for indicators. And you also noted it in your report. Yes. What I had a question is, both the letter and your report both say that that this test will measure growth over the course of the year and whether interventions are helping students catch up. My question is, and I think one of the goals that we talked about was making sure that not only is it helping students catch up, but it's also helping to identify students that need more.
correct.
Right. And I just didn't feel like the letter home illustrated that or this. I just wanted to make sure that that was in fact the case at Fast Bridge. It's not only showing where students need extra help, it's also showing where students that need enrichment.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things where, as we look at our assessments, and I know last year we were utilizing MAP and Fast Bridge, and we had lengthy discussions with our admin team. We had talked with their staff about, selecting one assessment. I know that many of our staff are frustrated that we were using Fast Bridge and MAP, particularly in our younger grades, and just the over testing that was occurring, or the over assessing, I should say, just the stresses put on students as well as take away from regular classroom instruction, we are looking at what that looks like as we pivot away from MAP into FastBridge. Our goal really is to, we look at this data, one, obviously take a look at growth. That's important that we see growth in all of our kids over the course of the year. But if we're not seeing growth, then we are looking at how can we better utilize it. So let's say that there's a student who needs further enrichment, who's not experiencing growth. That's something which we'll go back and take a look at the curriculum. We'll look at the lessons and what we can do to, move them forward. Interventions a lot of times is used, always from a deficit perspective, but interventions can be used across the spectrum. So a student who needs to be pushed or be challenged, interventions can be put into place to provide that as well. So, but a lot of times when people hear intervention, they automatically defer to, in this particular case, particular wording, using to help someone catch up. But we can't, it is used really for students across the spectrum. So I know when Lisa's here and we have, through our first round of reports, this quarter, we could talk a little bit more about that at the board as well.
Great. It just wasn't super clear in either that letter or this.
So,
that was the intent.
I think one of the things that through the strategic plan and Portrait Graduates, we have a long, lengthy discussions that we want to make sure that we're meeting the needs of all of our learners across the spectrum, that all students are being appropriately challenged and pushed. And so the curriculum speaks to them. And that is something which we are looking at as we collect data and we, have teachers and staff members evaluate data and look at that with that lens in mind, that are all of our kids experiencing growth and are they being properly challenged?
Thank you.
Is there a way to compare the growth, using old maps data with FastBridge?
That's something which we're working on. I think when we have that first data point with FastBridge, we can talk about the correlation between MAP and FastBridge, and if we can use existing MAP data with last year to this year, and or whether or not we start with a new baseline. But we'll have that information. So I think a lot of times MAP really is meant to measure growth over the course of a year. You can look at over time, but really it tracks, because MAP does take into consideration like that summer slide that during, like I said, there will just be some, backwards movement of students. So really looks at where students at in the fall, and then at the end of the year and how much progress we made. And FastBridge does the same sort of thing. So we'll look at, those sorts of measurements as well. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Chris. And, excuse me, Lisa's report is in your packet also for information. Questions for her, you certainly could just email her with anything about her report.
Would Chris know? He'll be asked.
Sure.
Had a question.
Do my best. If I can, I'll just.
Yeah, if you can't, then we can get the answer later. But let me just write it up. I was curious when she said, I'm not sure where, I think it's near the bottom of the page where it's talking about school improvement equity initiative coordinator. I was just curious what was meant by awaiting determination from the Agency of Education regarding future planned status of schools. What did that mean?
So, and Lisa will have to confirm this, but my understanding of this, is each year, particularly with the shift to cognitive VITCAP, we still have yet to see how that's going to be used to determine how well schools are doing, particularly the school report card. And so that will, once this state releases that data, then we'll have a better understanding in terms of where schools are at and who receive these grants and these grant funds, and who we identified as a school is doing well and a school who needs to work a little bit more with equity.
Are those schools the only ones that we're worried about? Like
Around equity?
Yeah.
Well, I think I know in the past, I think close to every school in the state of Vermont was dealing with equity issues. And equity really is just across different demographic groups. So if you look at, say, from like a general population special ed or across, gender or race, you might see just differences in scores. And so, just make sure that we're doing as good of a job as we are to make sure that those gaps are as small as we possibly can have.
I think she's just included two things on that line. Those schools are not, that's not what that's about for equity for our schools. It's about school improvement, whether our schools are off or going
Correct.
to remain on a plan. She's just listed those two things on there, but that is not reflective of those two schools. Proctor High School and Proctor Elementary School, I think we've talked about before, are on plans.
So they, right,
They-
We're talking,
Yeah.
And they've received,
not equity.
right, and they've received grant funding to help them assist to help with reading where they're having some deficits. That's what that's referring to.
Right.
Jen's on, I think maybe she could speak to that we haven't received yet, notification yet if our schools are
correct,
clear.
correct on those two, but
Why she has equity on that line, but equity does,
But equity is something which the state does, so that they're,
right, but equity isn't just in relationship to those two schools.
no, that's what I'm saying, every school in Vermont is dealing with equity.
Yeah.
All of our schools in SU are dealing with equity according to the state, so, and regionally, I think almost every school regionally as well, so it's something which we are aware of and looking to address, but
Those two schools, we're waiting to see if we're not going to have to remain on.
On the plan.
Yes.
correct.
Thank you. I was just curious.
Yep. Jen, is there anything you want to add to that, or?
No, that's correct. We hope to find out when they release the VitCap ninth grade, which is about the timeline they've given us.
Thank you. All right, moving on to contract recommendations. Professional staff. Linda Nelson, Proctor, Polteny High School's special ed teacher, horizontal move from 51,706 to 55,584. Jessica Melvac, Polteny High School special education teacher, horizontal move from 68,079 to 70,233. Linda McEwen, Proctor High School teacher, horizontal move from 53,773 to 55,498. Brian Lisco, Polteny High School life skills special ed teacher, salary to be determined. Sarah Taylor, GRCSU early education and extended school coordinator, contract addendum for cell phone stipend, $40 per month. And the pairs down below are for informational purpose only. I think if you remember at a prior meeting, the numbers weren't on there and the board just wanted to confirm that that's what the numbers were. I think Louis did speak to it, but that's just for confirmation. Yes. All right, any questions for professional staff? With respect to salary, I'm presuming we're going into executive session at the end of the meeting for that or for setting the salary?
For Brian, let's go, no,
I think it just was.
that's because we are waiting to get confirmation from the state,
Okay,
about.
I mean,
the
because he
licensure.
just goes on the scale, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So a motion will be in order to approve professional staff with the salary for Brian Lisco to be, per the GRCSU salary scale.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Tina, discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor?
I
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Resignations, we have a resignation from Rachel Vandenberg, Proctor Elementary Special Educator or Special Ed Para, effective 6/30/2023. A motion would be in order to accept the resignation. Motion by Mike, discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. You have in your packet for information, open positions across the SU still. Finance, Louis?
I'll come stand over here so that everyone could see me better. So in the packet was the budget timeline for that time of year already, unfortunately. So there's two timelines, one for the SU and then a different one for the local districts. So for the SU, it's a little bit of a abbreviated and it happens a little faster and a little sooner because we look to have final numbers for the SU budget to be able to put those into the local budgets, so that we know what impact the assessments are going to have on those local budgets. So for the SU, here we are in September, we're reviewing the budget timeline. That's our goal today. Talk about any other budget priorities, parameters that the board would like to charge on the administration to research and bring back for the first draft. During the month of September, I will be compiling all of the data, the historical data, as well as future data to come up with a first draft. I will review that with central office administration. We'll tweak it, probably a couple times, and then in October, the October GRCSU board meeting, we will present the first draft of the SU budget. At that time, we'll review, the board will provide feedback, tell us things they want to see, things they want us to put in, take out, whatnot. And then we will come back with the second draft in November. And the goal would be to have an approved GRCSU budget at our November meeting. With the shifts in schedules where the SU used to be at the end of the month and now we're at the beginning of the month, shouldn't have any major impacts on our budget process. But we'll need to, as we go through it, we may need to either tweak some dates, or have an extra meeting if necessary, if we're not in a good place to approve it at that time. On the district side, the process is very similar, except it's really pushed back a month. And we'll go through this at each of the local board meetings as well. But so in essence, in October, which will be next month, we'll do what we're doing today. We'll go over the budget timeline. We'll talk about budget parameters, budget priorities, have a quick conversation as to what the board wants to see, and what they want us to bring back. And then at the November board meeting, we'll look at a first draft, and in between I will be meeting with the building administrators, getting their feedback and pulling together a first draft. I'll probably meet with them once or twice, depending on the school and what's going on, so that we could do all the necessary tweaks, get it as accurate as possible, and bring back to you a first draft that's as close to where we want it to be as possible. So that'll be November. December, we'll look at a second draft. Because we meet so early in the month in December, we most likely will not have many of the pieces of the puzzle to be able to calculate a tax rate. So really all we'll know is our local side, what our revenues are, what our expenses are, education spending. What the state is doing will be a big unknown. So then in January, we will meet again, look at the third draft, and the goal would be at that first meeting in January is to approve a local budget, so that we could start working on warnings, town reports, brochures, flyers, stuff like that. Any questions on the process, timeline? I think most of you have been through this already, so it's not anything new.
It'll be good tonight to give you direction where this board would like to see the SU budget going.
Yeah, a budget, where you want to see the budget going, any positions that you want to discuss, maybe whether it's executive or open session, positions adding, moving, positions you want to research, any other type things that you want us to look at.
So I guess I'll start. What I would kind of like to see is similar to what we do in Corey Valley at the district level. I'd like to see department heads come back with their wants, so that then when we have the budget, if we can look at what department heads see as their needs, and we have a little more information to work with. I'd also like to know, where we're at with ESSER funds, when ESSER funds have to be expended, and what funds we have with respect if we wanted to do any kind of positions, what that funding looks like.
Okay. So we could plan for, maybe put it on the agenda as an ESSER 3 update.
Yes,
I can give a full update as to where we are with the funds and
sure, that'd be
that
great.
plan. Yep.
I would love to know what it would take to provide transportation during the summer. I don't think that's something that we've done in the past. I don't think we would need as many buses as we do during the school year, but I know from at least Rutland Town standpoint that there were almost twice as many students recommended for summer enrichment programs, and only half of them were able to partake in it. And I think transportation was definitely probably part of the issue. And I think it would be great if we could look at what that would cost to provide some transportation, at least for the summer enrichment or summer school programming to help with equity.
I could provide some estimates, but just keep in mind, we are looking at shifting to outsourcing our after-school and summer programming.
But I think what Tina's referring to is more the school-based, like in terms of,
Yeah, the academic.
The academic
performance.
part.
right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then can you just remind us, is the transportation contract up this year?
Yep, so this is the last year. I have had preliminary conversations with our provider. He believes, based on our last, we went out to bid about, it would have been for a little over 4 years ago, that bidding process brought us close to where we were in the market at the time.
Mhm.
So based on where he sees us needing to be, I think we're looking at roughly about 4%.
A 4%
Should have
increase?
Expected, yep.
Okay, thank you. Tim?
I don't have anything at the moment.
Okay, Eric? Or are there positions, if people have positions specifically they'd like to speak about, we certainly can do that in executive session. I don't mean to put you on the spot about that. If there are positions within the district that you think are needed, that certainly would be.
I don't have anything specific. I guess I would just, encourage the department heads as they put their wish list together to offer as much detail as they possibly can, because, sometimes it's just not relatable in terms of, the need, what it provides, what the salary, what the salary might be in lieu of what the market rate is in this county or other school districts, things like that, like things that, would weigh on my overall decision, but sometimes it's just missing from the puzzle at the time. So just as detailed as they possibly can, understanding that they're, not talking to educators at the time that they're sitting here.
Eric?
No, I mean, I typically think that, it's usually administration that would come to us if they need some sort of staffing or position increase. But I do like, as far as budgeting goes, what you said, having all that information when we go to budget, instead of in April or May.
George?
We had previously discussed looking into school-to-school transportation in Wells Springs. I hope that's still in there or not.
Yeah, so that would be a local discussion at a Wells Springs
Yeah,
board
would-
meeting.
But within the context of sending out, bids for a new contract as well. So you already said plus 4% about.
Okay. Linda?
Nothing at this point. Thank you.
Okay. Jeff?
Good evening, everybody. Well, we're in a different spot here, so we try to control costs as much as we can, but we obviously defer to y'all to provide good education. So I mean, for us to weigh in on who you can hire and when you can hire is I don't think appropriate.
Okay. Amanda?
I kind of agree. I don't have anything direct at this time. I'd say, if we're hearing from the admin something consistent, like, open positions or something that can't be filled due to cost or anything like that, that's kind of across the board, then maybe look at that. But other than that, I don't have anything direct.
Okay. Colin?
Not at the time.
All right. Mike?
No.
Right.
What you said,
Okay,
other than the vision.
right. So, I mean, I think
Vision. Oh,
it kind of goes without saying that we'd like to keep it within, 2%, 3%, we don't want to see, 8% increase or something like that, but, yeah. But
I haven't heard anything
realizing
about-
it's a first draft and,
Yeah.
you know, if it's gonna be higher, that's what we want to see it in the first draft.
I haven't heard anything about health insurance yet, but I did hear on the radio last week or 2 weeks ago that I know UVM is pushing for a 24%
Right,
hike in costs. So
right,
it's a little scary.
right. Yeah, there's a lot of pieces that aren't, we have no control, but, okay.
When are we doing the first read? Sorry.
So the first draft for the SU budget will be at the October next meeting.
Okay. Do you have anything else?
Not for this, no.
Okay, thank you. All right,
Are we still on financial?
Yeah.
Oh, I had just a couple questions, Louis. On the general fund expenditure report, on page 1 for professional services, did we expect to spend that much in the first 2 months of the year? Was that, I'm just asking if it was
Is that
expected.
the $80,000 line that you're referring to?
Yeah, it's like we spent like.
Yeah, so a majority of that gets spent on subscriptions that we pay for at the beginning of the year. So I think a big one is Infinite Campus, I believe, is what hits there.
I was
That's
curious, 'cause
significant.
most of the budget.
Yeah, that, and I think that's close to like $50,000 now, upper 40, it was high 40, something like that.
And then, on page 1, also the advertising, was that expected? We had budgeted 8,000 and we've already spent almost 7,000.
So that's mostly School Spring. We pay that once a year at the beginning of the year.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And the dues and fees was over budget. By,
Who's dues and fees?
the administrations, there's a,
I think there's 2 dues and fees lines. There's one for the, the
these are your,
School Boards Association, right? Is that the one?
it's under the, executive administration, sorry.
Is it the last?
Sorry, I think that was.
It's budgeted for 10,000 and it says that we spent.
Okay, it looks like, so part of it looks like it should go to the line right below that. So the VSBA. dues.
VSBA.
Yeah,
So
I can
just-
do a reclass, yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That it?
That's it. Thanks.
okay, moving on. GRCSU Central Office relocation update.
This will be quick. So we are in our new office. I know that our goal was to have this meeting there tonight. We moved in a little bit later than we expected just because of some, just issues, just not on our end. But we are in, we're settled. The conference room right now is currently kind of a holding place for a lot of miscellaneous items. So we are going to be reaching out to admins to see if there are any items that we currently have that they could use at their schools. We have file cabinets, we have student chairs, desks, and then then we could talk about, open that up to just, public, but to things that just we're not going to use. And so once we have that cleared out, our goal would be to have the board meeting in October at the new office. So, we are dealing with a couple of issues, just, moving in, but we're handling that. But we look forward to, having you over there next month and just getting a quick little tour of the facility. But it's really nice. It's looking great. We're nothing but positives, but, yeah, so we just get the shopping carts figured out. We'll be okay. But
Okay. And strategic plan, did you have anything more than in the superintendent's?
no, in the materials, we included the kind of year one. There are kind of 8 pages for each of the goals, more of the procedural pieces. We laid out for the board before, like what our goals are. And here's, the writing team is working on this, and this is with, the central office admin, building admin staff, kind of working through logistics of what we're going to be working on over the course of the year and just the time frame, and obviously just around measures of success. In October, Lisa will kind of present a more of like a reporting calendar for you, so you can see where some of these items will be brought before the board. Just kind of let you know, but we will also, as discussed, it's 3 times over the course of this year, we'll give an update in terms of where we're at, how we're doing, whether or not we're hitting our targets, if we're off a little bit, or if we need to make any adjustments. But we'll keep the board in. So, but like I said, this is for your review. If you have any questions, myself and Bill or Lewis, and I know Lisa's not here. I know oversees a lot of this around instruction and so, but
All right.
but feel free to reach out anytime if you have any questions on me. So.
Great, moving on, new business, GRCSU substitute report. So, since we've gone with this group now, or this in-house, I thought it might just be good for people to have a, snapshot of what it looked like, where we're at. And I guess Lewis is gonna speak to this, if we think this is, the direction we want to continue. Go ahead.
Yeah, so there was a report in the packet, so I hope everyone had a chance to review it. It was just only provided today, so I'm sorry for that. But I just provided some key highlights. So as Lisa mentioned, we moved away from Kelly Services. This will be our second year in service due to several reasons. One, their presence in the area was slim to none. We were the only ones, so we felt like we were not getting as good of service as we needed. So that was the main reason. We felt like we could bring it in-house and do a better job without a cost increase. So last year we hired a sub coordinator. It was her first year, and her main role is to manage the frontline software as well as all the substitutes. So she's the liaison between the substitutes and all the buildings. She does all the recruitment, the onboarding, the hiring, the interviewing. So she manages that whole sub pool. She's also managing what is our new electronic time clock, which we piloted at the end of last year and rolled out to all staff starting in July for the summer programs and this September for all other staff. So just some key highlights on the program. So our sub rate last year was $15 an hour. So it doesn't matter if they were subbing for teachers or paraeducators, they would pay the same rate, $15 an hour for all staff. Our total sub expense was $314,000, which amounts to approximately 20,482 sub hours, approximately 2,730 days based on 7.5 hours per day. So I provided just a quick breakdown of each building and what percentage of that sub pool that they used. So West Rutland's at 21%, Polteny Elementary School's at 20%, Rutland Town's at 20%, Proctor Elementary 15%, Polteny High School 8%, Proctor High School 7%, Middletown 5%, and Wells 4%. And so there's several factors that affect that percentage. One is how many staff are in the buildings. Obviously, the smaller buildings are using less substitutes, so that's why you see that number is a lot smaller. West Rutland, Polteny Elementary School, and Rutland Town are our three biggest buildings. The other factor that plays into is where subs are readily available to work. So for those schools that sort of are in more of the outskirts, like Middletown and Wells, there's not as many subs to pull from. Where West Rutland, Rutland Town, it has a lot larger circle that they're pulling subs from. So their fill percentage is usually higher, and then they have more staff to fill for. The substitute fill rate, which means how many positions that needed a sub were filled last year, was approximately 71.25%. Of that's made up of two different factors. There's current employee absences, which is 63%. And then there was vacancies, which are positions that are not filled with an employee, that we're just filling them with subs. And that's really two different situations. One could be there's a position where someone resigned and now that position's vacant. And so we're filling with subs until we hire somebody. But we also use the vacancy for other purposes. So like, for instance, last year there was a position in West Rutland, which had a vacancy for the full year because somebody was, because that position wasn't filled for the full year, and we knew we weren't going to fill it. And so we had someone from the sub pool that filled that position for the full year, and they went into that position. Let's see. So I listed some of our recruitment efforts and how many subs we currently have. So we started FY 23, which was last year, with 23 subs on the list. During the year, we had a total of 79 subs work at least one day. Not all subs are active for the full year, so we utilize many different varieties of subs. So some of them are college students who are only available maybe during their Christmas break, or their winter break, or during their spring break, or when they get out of school in May and they're available for May and June. So that's one section. We use some that maybe are seasonal employees who maybe they work in Killington for the winter, but they have the fall and the spring available. Or maybe they have summer jobs that go into the fall and they're available during the winter. So not all subs work all year round. Some work seasonal, some work, some of these may have only worked 1 or 2 days, but they were utilized to some capacity during the year. We started FY22 just using subs for teaching and paras. We had 1 nurse sub at the time. We've expanded that, and we now use frontline to fill nurse sub positions. And I believe last count that I knew, we were up to 4 nurse subs. We currently have 63 active subs on our list for this year. Again, not all of them are active every day, but those are people that can see all the absences each day and choose whether they're available or not to fill those. As far as recruitment goes, we use School Spring and Indeed. We really count on the schools to word of mouth, community events, school events. We had a booth at the Vermont State Fair. We've had booths at the career fairs, like the ones that happen at the twice we've done it, I think, at the Walmart parking lot. I mean, we try the best we can. Some of them were more successful. We have the same issues with subs that we have with all of our positions. I mean, it's a tough job market and trying to get people to work in our schools, especially at sometimes at the rate that's less desirable than others, is one of our challenges. Before I get on to that last line, I just want to, on the back, I provided more data for you to review, just snippets of data per building. So the top chart is just how many subs were used per building. And then what the average was per day. Now, these are not necessarily all full days. Some could be half days, some could be a couple hours. It's just how many subs were in the building that day. And then the bottom chart is just not directly related to subs, but indirectly, it's just how many leave days per building that we had to fill and what the average was per employee per building. One of the things that we push with all staff, we try as much as possible, is putting in that absence into the frontline system as soon as you know you need to take it. Helps us fill that position a lot easier. The fill rate is multiplied so much more. If you know you have a dentist appointment a month in advance, put that at the frontline a month in advance. Don't wait till the night before, because those people that are subs can see that absence every day when they go in, they can see that absence for that month. Where if you're just putting it in the night before, they don't know about it, and unless they're staying up late or waking up early in the morning to look, they don't know that absence exists. So that is one factor that does have a significant impact on the fill rate, is getting those absences as soon into the frontline system as soon as possible.
Before you go to the bottom part, can you just tell us, so it doesn't mention custodian subs, so how are those filled? And what's the rate for custodian subs?
Custodian subs, yeah, we don't use frontline currently. They're more on an on-call basis, so each building has a list of subs that they use. And some buildings it's nobody. In other buildings it's students, and maybe a very small percentage of schools may have 1 or 2 people on staff. Custodian subs are something that we need to work on. They're hard to find.
And what do you pay custodian subs?
For students, it's minimum wage.
Mhm.
And for, if there were if there were custodians that worked for us previously, and then they maybe either resigned or retired and they still want to stay on as a sub, it's usually their previous, it was their, I think, no, for one of them, it was their previous rate. I don't know that we really have, we've used the $15 rate as well.
Yeah.
I'd have to go back and look specifically.
Okay.
I wasn't prepared for custodian subs tonight.
Mike has a question.
We know what our experience is for cost, Kelly, versus this is something we've used for a year, excluding salaries.
So with this, we were under budget, in all of our buildings, and you could, I could provide a report at each of the local boards as to how, I know if you look at your, year-end summary for each of your buildings, I did report that as one of the line items,
Mhm.
how much each school was under budget, or not each school, but each district.
But then how does that relate to, let's say we have a vacancy and a para goes in to fill for a teacher? How we're adjusting to pay them? We're still just paying them their regular hourly wage?
So if we have a vacancy for a teacher and a para goes in to fill in for that teacher, the para gets their regular rate plus $5 an hour.
Okay, so when we look at that we're under, do those costs factor into this?
No, because then we would be filling the para position in that situation.
Right,
But the $5 extras, no, not included.
okay,
We paid that with Kelly Services as well, so that wouldn't be a change.
okay.
If it's a long-term sub situation, does it say $15 an hour or?
No, so if it's a long-term sub for a teacher, then if it's greater than 45 days, they then follow the master agreement and are placed based on that master agreement.
And so is that taken out of this total expense number?
Correct. This would be only subs that are going through the frontline program.
Okay.
So if you have someone that's filling in for a teacher on a long-term basis, that is hitting a low budget, it's not going through here.
Okay, thank you.
And that, again, comparing apples to apples, that was the same situation when we were with, when we were with Kelly Services as well.
Okay.
I don't need it, but the fill rate data for each school.
Yep.
And do we have any problems with certain schools that maybe the teachers aren't doing that month in advance? Have you guys noticed any trends, or is it pretty good for people?
We do have data available on a school basis to look at fill rates, yes.
Do we want to look at it?
Well, I just was wondering if it's good data mining and just see if one, like maybe one fill rate's down. I mean, one could be geographic location, others could be maybe the teachers are just going in the night before versus trying to.
Yeah, and there's
a problem. I'm not saying
there's so many variables too, so, you have the like, this is even with the costs, so like comparing Kelly Services to what we're doing now. I mean, one of the biggest variables is the higher our fill rate, the higher our cost is going to be. So if we had, say a 60% fill rate with Kelly Services, we're only paying for those positions that are filled. If we have a 71% fill rate with doing this on our own, we have filled more positions, so our cost is going to be higher by that 11% extra that we filled. So the more, I mean, it's great to have those positions filled because it makes the day go easier in all the schools, but having those positions filled does increase our costs.
Sure.
And that would play out into this analysis. So that's just one variable. The other variable is like how many vacancies we have. So if we have, I know right after COVID, we had a lot of vacancies, positions were hard to fill. I think we're in a pretty good place right now. In most schools, I mean, I know Bill is running into some issues, just recently with some new students moving in. But if we have all of our positions filled and we're not having to worry about vacancies, then our fill percentage is going to be a little bit higher. But if each school has a vacancy, that's right off the bat, you have one sub gone for each one of those vacancies, so you have less subs to pull from.
So did you say that West Rutland and Rutland Town don't have as many problems pulling for subs. So does that mean that Wells, Middletown, Protney, and Proctor do have some difficulty with subs?
No, not in so many words. I didn't say that. I said that West Rutland and Rutland Town, because of their location, have a bigger pool to pull from.
Okay,
That doesn't always amount to being more successful. There's a lot of dynamics that play into it. What positions are available, what the culture of the buildings are, what, how good of a job it is to work in that building. And subs learn which buildings they want to be in and which subs buildings they don't. I would agree that definitely schools like Wells and Middletown do have difficulties sometimes filling positions because of their remote location. And when you look at some place like Wells, where you have a small circle, really, if you half of this, if to one side you have New York State, which I'm not really sure what they're doing in New York State, but I'm sure they're paying more because New York pays more for everything. And then on the other half, you have many people going to Pulteney and the Rutland area. So you have a lot smaller demographic to pull from to fill those positions.
okay. Thank
But
you.
then again, you also have less staff. So on a typical day, when you only have maybe one person out, you're fine. But if you have one of those days where the bug goes around and you have 4 staff members out, you're going to have difficulty filling those positions.
Right. Because Pulteney had some issues towards the end of school, so it was harder, I know, for them to find subs to do that. So thank you.
You're welcome.
I guess the other question would be the price point when you look at like Fairhaven, Otter Valley, Rutland City, where do we fall in that price point for subs?
Good point.
So when we set the $15 rate, we were competitive. I don't know where they've gone since then.
Cities don't have.
Rutland City does theirs a little bit differently. They pay based on their credentials of the subs,
Right.
which we don't. So if somebody has a teaching license, they pay more, even if they're a daily sub. The starting salary for a paraeducator on A1 is currently $16. $16.19. We're at 15 for subs. Without it, and the subs don't get any benefits. It was brought up at one of the local board meetings about looking at that rate and seeing if there was any room to increase that rate. And so that came from a local board meeting. And I said we would bring the discussion here to see what the pleasure of the board was. So every dollar that we increase the rate would have cost the SU approximately, based on last year's usage, approximately $22,000.
What did we budget last year?
No.
What did you budget last year?
I don't have our budget. Sorry.
So
It's made into so many different pieces into the local budgets. But 20,000, I could say that 22,000 would not have a significant impact on any of our local budgets because many of them were under budget.
And can you tell us who the local budget was that won it, or local district that went into?
It was brought up at the Well Springs board meeting.
We might need to look at that, That
So
might
is
be something to look at.
Is that request for this current year or to look at putting into the budget for what we're working on?
This is a request from the local board, so I'll let her.
Oh, well, I'm just asking.
It came up in our meeting just in regards to substitutes and being able to fill and hire substitutes. Because, I mean, this just kind of puts things in bigger perspective. The way I see it is that, Wells and Middletown Springs being a lot more farther out, we might have a harder time recruiting people and or getting subs in to fill those spots. So that's where it kind of came up. And when you think about it, to not being able to have subs to fill in, I don't know. It kind of seemed like something that would be a good conversation to have. And I guess my question is this would reflect this recommendations for this year, right? FY24.
What would be, if the board approved, it would be effective whenever you set that rate to be effective. So if you said starting September 15th, we can start it. Ideally, it would be the start of the next payroll cycle.
And I remember we had conversations about increasing the rate to be more competitive. And if we were to increase it to this recommendation, that would keep the rate even more competitive, even with.
Correct. I mean, I think we all know that the job market is, the rates are moving faster than we can keep up with. When you look out there, it's a tough job market. And will a dollar move the needle? I mean, I wouldn't go higher than a dollar, but I don't know if it'll move the needle as far as getting more subs. I think most subs are probably doing it because they like the flexibility of the position. They can choose when they want to work and when they don't. If they wake up that morning and feel like working, they can sign up for one of the positions. If they don't want to, then they don't have to. And maybe they're the retired teachers. Some of them are retired teachers that just want to have still some contact with students. So they work maybe a few days here and there. So I don't know. I haven't heard a lot of feedback from subs that are saying that they need more money. So this isn't coming from that direction. Will it be appreciated? I'm sure it will be appreciated by many of them. I don't know if it will, like I said, I don't know if it will increase our sub pool, but it would definitely keep us more competitive and in line, say, with our para position, which is the $16 currently.
But when we say competitive, we don't know what abutting SUs are doing, so it's basically just giving a $1 raise. We don't know competitive across.
If the board wanted to wait, I could get.
Well, I mean, I don't think I wouldn't feel comfortable going more than you're currently paying your paras. That would be inappropriate, and I'm not even sure we could do that, could we?
Pretty disadvantageous in a negotiation.
I would agree. I wouldn't go higher than it.
Yeah, that would just be
I mean,
odd.
To me, not to drill down, I mean, this is a very small part, but 20 grand that we're fighting for money everywhere. It'd be nice to look at individual school data. I wouldn't be against a Wells jumping their rate, because if they need help getting people, maybe that moves the dial. But I don't think moving $1 moves the dial for Rutland Town. It's just adding cost for us. I don't think it's going to bring more people in or change the fall days. So
I would be against having different rates for different schools. I think that would not be equitable. We've been trying to be equitable in what we do across schools. And we have a sub that works in Pulteney one day, because we have subs that cross buildings. If we have working in Pulteney one day and Wells another day, or West Rutland one day and Middletown another day, I think the rate should be the same. It's the same job. And
I think we should find out what the neighboring SUs have. We may not be able to match New York, but I think it'd help everybody if we're competitive with the surrounding. We just don't know who's choosing them over us.
Right. I mean, I just think that with the realization that 16 would be the cap, that you couldn't go above 16, regardless of what neighboring towns are doing or communities are doing. So, but it would be interesting to have that information.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's a good idea to have the information, but to cap it at 16 would be a good idea.
So we could table this until the October meeting.
I think it'd be good too, to maybe even having this information, have the conversation at the local level too. Because that would financially impact everyone.
Are you thinking of a differential rate due to distance?
We were just thinking, is this the current rate, and is it competitive to get substitutes? That's what the conversation was.
You have a differential rate for somebody that was going from Rutland Town to Wells, that might be applicable, but you might not want the same application if somebody lives right in Middletown is going to substitute in Middletown, you know what I'm saying? So that way you might be able to shore up your distances, but would have to be somebody that was traveling a distance to earn that versus somebody who's right there to earn the same thing.
Now you're getting too complicated.
I was going to say, that seems like to me that we're making the that department more. That sounds like to me, the next request is gonna be, we need an assistant in that department, which is not gonna be
Well,
good.
no, it's an SU program that we're using, so we should have the same salary.
But if I'm a sub, I'm not driving to Wells, but maybe if they're paying me $2 an hour more, I am.
Right, that's,
That's what I'm saying, to break it up. I know we're trying to be equitable,
Right.
but demographically, we're not sitting next to each other. And
Right, but
And also Rutland Town's got 1,215 of these days, so a dollar hammers our budget more when I don't think we need to raise it.
well,
And if we're not having a problem filling sub positions, why arbitrarily give a raise? When we're trying to fight with our teachers about getting them paid when it's active,
Well,
we,
I agree, nobody wants to spend extra, but if our fill rates are 70 something %, that's not good. That's not that good. We want to have people there that can educate the kids.
right,
So
so,
$1 an hour more can help us all.
babysit.
I think it's worth it.
A couple of weeks ago, I received an email from a sub in Rutland Town, and I had no idea this was going to be on the agenda whatsoever because I didn't know it was coming up. But if it's okay, I'll just read it from her perspective. She said that she's had 5 children go through Rutland Town School, with twins starting in 2003. When her youngest son started kindergarten in 2010, she started subbing. This will be her 14th school year as a sub at Rutland Town School. And she just thought perhaps we'd like to see or hear a perspective from a sub rather than just info from central office. By no means is she saying that substitutes have it harder than teachers or paras, but it can definitely be a very challenging day nonetheless. They might take an assignment and then arrive at the school only to be told that they're no longer doing that assignment and that they will be a gym teacher instead of a special ed teacher, for example. There are also times where, again, they're thinking they're going to be one person and they end up being 3 different people. Substitutes have to be very flexible and be willing to move around when needed in different places than expected. Sometimes subs are coming in for teachers who are sick, who have no plans, and staff are scrambling to get things set up for you. If you're a good sub, you've learned to go with the flow and jump in to accommodate and help as best you can. She would personally appreciate the bump from $15 to $16, and she'd be more than happy to answer any questions that we might have regarding substitutes and their duties or anything else that we have concerns about.
how would she know there was a discussion from 15 to 16 when board members didn't even know that?
I don't know.
Well, that seems incredibly odd to me. And it sounds like maybe she's a little too involved in administration within your school district. I'm gonna just put that out there for whoever she is. I'm a little,
Well, the
I'm a
other
little-
thing is that she could have just wanted, now, I mean, if we're
that's
gonna.
not, if you listen to the line, Linda, listen to the line, love, listen to the line.
Flip
Let her
the
read it to
coin.
you again.
Flip the
Perplexed.
coin. All I'm saying is, flip
Yeah.
the coin. It could be
Yeah.
that she's just asking for a raise. I
That's
was
not
a
what her,
sub.
that's not what her line says.
Yeah.
So it's a
I
little
was a sub.
perplexing.
The only thing I'll say is
Very
my memory
difficult.
might be a little foggy. I don't think we discussed any increase in particular. We just said it needs to be looked at.
Yeah, it was.
Well, that's why I'm saying it's a little hinky. So,
Well,
Maybe my
I don't
wife
think
is
it is.
saying
but I don't think it is.
Not-
It is difficult. And you know, the other thing that's hard for subs is that when it wasn't all computerized, it's on their computer. And when you don't have the ability to get onto the computer system to see what they're doing. So as a sub, you really spend a lot of time walking around and trying to make sure that they're on the assignment. And, you know, and you're almost like sneaking up because they may be doing something else. When it was paper and pencil, subbing was a different world. When they're on the computer now, you know, and as a sub, I did ask that, can I get on and see what the assignment, can you put me on the computer so that I could see what's going on? So subs do have, I think, a little bit of difficulty. Plus the fact I was moved, not a lot, but I was asked, so and so called in, and can you do, we're having an IEP meeting, can you cover 3 or 4 different teachers so that they can make it to an IEP meeting? So I don't have any, just for me alone, I have no problem with increasing the sub pay to $16 an hour and to do a more in-depth look at it to see if we can, how we are we competitive? Are we competitive? But that's
Amanda?
just my opinion.
Can we look at for the next budget, Louis, since we're having this conversation about increasing sub pay, can we look at what a para increase would look like to not have them 20 cents apart from each other as well? Not going to
That's a
change it right now, but
That's a negotiation issue, so that's not gonna be happening. So. Paras live on a schedule that's negotiated.
Support staff contract.
Right.
but
That pay-
how many years are their contracts renewed? Are they 3
So,
years?
so Amanda, the support staff will begin contract negotiations this fall, so they have to notify us by October, which they will. So any discussion around a support staff contract should be handled in negotiations, not in a board meeting during this year.
Okay.
So
We've really like gotten off the track here, in my opinion.
Sure, more than 20 minutes.
So do we
I
need a motion to increase, or are we deciding to put it on an agenda for October?
so the consensus I think here was to table it till October to find out what area SUs currently are paying their subs.
Okay, thank you.
And is there a differential between a licensed sub versus a non-licensed sub, if that
Not
factors
for a
in?
daily sub.
Not
If
for
they're a
daily sub.
long-term sub, then
Yeah.
there's a different.
Yeah, just.
But Rutland City, I thought Rutland City, it used to be even when you were daily, you got.
Rutland City has a different.
Yeah.
So.
So I'll
We'll have
come
that-
back and I'll
So,
provide.
I reached out to Slate Valley, Rutland Northeast, Rutland City. I won't hear back from Slate Valley. So Slate Valley is at $16.50 an hour with a 3-hour minimum. That's what they pay their subs.
Okay,
So if I hear back from Rutland Northeast or Rutland City, I'll let you know.
okay,
Thank you.
yeah. I know that Rutland City, even if you're daily, it's based on your credentials, so.
Yes.
No, she's licensed and she's the same as you or me walking.
Well, it used to be.
Yeah, it's not that way now.
Oh, okay. Well, I still think if we could have that information for the next meeting, then we could.
I think that would be good before we make a significant financial decision.
Yeah,
Thank you. Sounds good.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So that took A and B. So now we're at the VISBIT proxy. Who would like to be that?
Yeah, so each year we just have to, and we'll do this at our local boards as well.
Yeah.
The board just has to nominate for either a representative to vote on their behalf at the October 27th meeting in Lake Maury. I do believe it's typically around unemployment and multi-line are the 2 votes that take place. So if no one will be in attendance, the board can vote to have the VISBIT board vote by proxy. So it's really just, it's up to the SU board. I know last year, I do believe, Eric,
Mhm.
you went on behalf of, or voted on behalf of the SU board. So we just need to know if the board would like to appoint a representative or move to a proxy.
Are you going?
I do intend to go,
Okay.
so
Should we have a proxy just in case?
I would say, is anyone else planning to go too? I mean, I do intend to go, but, having a backup wouldn't.
Are you
What
going?
day?
I'm not sure yet. Can we table this
It's
for next
October
meeting?
27th in Lake Maury.
I'll be back up. I
don't
have no
think
problem.
it's whereby-
Is it? Oh, I think we thought next week.
I have no problem being a backup. I think we should definitely have representation. So
Yeah,
I can carve out time if.
I don't know if we can, I'm trying to think from last year. I'm not sure if we can do that.
I can just sign
It's
up.
not an
Go.
online vote, right? You have to be in person unless it's a proxy.
Correct.
Correct.
So you could be in person, Colin? Okay. So we could say Eric, and if you're not available, Colin.
I think so, because
So-
that form has to be filled out and they have,
Correct.
and then it's got to be sent in, and then they
But we can do that at
We
the
can-
October
we-
meeting.
We can
Yes.
reach out to Biz, see if we can place, your name, Eric, and then if you're not available, place Colin's name
Really pick a
on
Friday.
that form, so. what's that?
You really pick a Friday?
Yeah.
and
Well,
then-
it's Thursday and Friday, so that's, yeah, so.
It's like at 8 a.m. on Friday morning.
So we're gonna
No
say, Eric with Colin as the backup.
You got a good golf course. All right.
All right.
That's a turn for you. We got-
All right, moving on to pre-K admission, GRCSU. You want to speak to this, Chris?
Yeah, so, and it was last, I'm trying to think of when it actually occurred, but I think it was, so, well, but before I go back, you give the historical revision of this, so. Currently, we know we have pre-K waiting lists. In some of our schools, we have a healthy number of individuals who are looking for pre-K for their child. I think it's particularly attractive since we are, we do have full day. We've run into an issue or a problem that in some of our pre-Ks that, we have a wait list, while in others, we have open spots available. And so families have inquired as whether or not if they say a family that living in, say, Rutland Town, who's on a wait list would have access to, say, Middletown Springs, who has an open seat. And being within the SU, that'd be something that we'd open to, or if it's something which we'd want to carve out or discuss. I know that, Eric and I discussed this, and Eric had crafted a draft of a pre-K policy, which is in the packet for review, which really would talk about allowing that to occur, but also having some caveats where we hold back a couple seats. So if a resident like somebody from Middletown would move in, all the seats wouldn't necessarily be filled, that they would still have access to a seat within their town. So it's really just, we had discussed this at a prior meeting when we did have an out-of-town resident who was looking at, I think it was actually an employee at the school who was looking to bring their child with and pay tuition. But then we had this discussion around if we have open seats available within the SU, should we allow for SU families to access those as opposed to leaving people on a wait list and having SU seats remain unfilled, particularly if that family is willing to transport their child to that school, and pick them up. So I think that's the crux of the discussion in terms of whether or not A, that's something we want to move forward with, and B, Eric has a draft of a model policy to review and to take a look at, and if that's something. So, I don't know, Eric, you want to talk anything about the policy?
Yeah, so this, Wells Springs had a situation come up, like, Chris said, that, we had out of non-resident want to bring, their child into the school. But we were working off of, I think it was like F9 or just a regular non-resident, policy. And we kind of realized that we didn't have anything that was specific to pre-K. And so that's kind of where this came from, was just kind of to basically outline, how pre-kindergarten admission would be done. And I think it kind of transformed into something that was like SU wide. So that wasn't, specific. We could have something that, because pre-K is universal, you can go anywhere. But that's basically where this came from. And it has not come to the policy committee this spring. I talked with Chris about it, and because there were potentially making changes to pre-K in the legislature, it just kind of fell on the back burner until now. So.
In which we do know that this is a year they have they're doing a study, they're doing a lot of research on pre-K, so we'll see what the next legislative session brings, if they're going to make have any actions, or I do know that one of the concerns was around mandatory pre-K for fourth grade, but kindergarten was non-compulsory. So you have a mandatory pre-K, but then kindergarten is not mandatory. It doesn't make much sense. And so it just was, with that, they wouldn't want to go back and revisit that. So I think there were a lot of things that they were going to consider and take a look at. So But in the interim, we do have open seats available in our schools that families, I think, would be willing to, or would like to access if possible. And I think the biggest attraction is while there are open seats available, but it's that full day, pre-K in our schools.
I don't think that there's anything majorly wrong with this policy, but I don't think it pertains to every school in the SU. For instance, Rutland Town doesn't have a separate 3-year-old and a separate 4-year-old classroom. And the other thing is, there's nothing on here that says that a 4-year-old will be given priority over a 3-year-old on the wait list. So I know, I believe that Rutland Town has it that way, that the 4-year-old should get precedence if they're on the wait list, even if they got on the wait list after the 3-year-old.
So does Rutland Town have their own policy?
I think it's more procedure. I don't.
So my question for the board is this something the board would like to kick back to the policy committee to work on and bring a draft whenever it's ready? I think there are some good questions that the policy committee could work through and then.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's good sort sharing of resources across the SU.
Sure.
Great idea.
Yeah, I agree. So I'm looking at this again, there's one thing that I think that caught my attention, so.
Okay, and so maybe that's a good idea to, get the information from elementary, schools, if there are procedures in place, building specific procedurally about how they are currently admitting or, holding or giving preference to or something like that.
Is that something that you could get the admins to give to us for the next?
Sure, actually, we could even, if we'd like, invite Sarah Taylor, who was our early ed pre-K coordinator, to attend policy meeting or just in advance. That'd be good.
Is truancy involved in pre-K?
Not as of right now.
No. Yeah, no. So it's kind of falls kind of outside the
Yeah, so
K through 12. There's a different set of regs, but
you can't hold back a pre-K kid.
no.
I mean, the way this is written,
Lucky.
it sounds like there's a separate 3-year-old and 4-year-old classrooms.
I think that's something which, we'll take a look at within our SU. That's, it goes back to the discussion around what the legislature would want to do, what's next. Is if that, 4-year-old become mandatory, then we take a look at availability and space with our schools. I know that was a concern in a lot of SUs and districts, that if that were to happen, then they would not have space for 3-year-olds, that it would eliminate that, which is because all the resources would be spent on just, the 4-year-olds in the district. So I think those are good questions. Who has if any of our schools have a 3-year-old classroom or 4-year-old classroom, or if it's just kind of, intermingled, which I believe most of them are intermingled, but.
Do we need a
I'll take a look
motion
at
to send this to the policy committee?
No, we could just ask Eric, who's the policy chair, to take this back and to, work on the policy when you have a draft to bring it back to the SU board.
Could we email our questions or concerns to him?
Yeah, anything about policy should always be sent to Eric.
I won't have men.
1 o'clock in the morning, you have a policy question. Eric's ready.
Send it. High priority.
No,
Your
thanks for putting this together.
policy committee people from
Yeah,
your local board.
yeah, so Tina would
That
be.
way-
I knew who they were.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you, Eric. Next we have, cell phone use in school. So if you call it the last meeting here, we had a member of the public come and discuss their concern about cell phones. So, I had asked that we just get what is in each school, handbook or on their website or whatever that is with respect to cell phones. So some principals kind of wrote a little something up, others. So you have all that information. It doesn't seem at this point that building admin feel that there's an issue, that a policy is necessitated, that everybody has something in place. And particularly when you're dealing with middle school, high school, that's going to be a little different than if you're dealing with pre-K or elementary school. So reading through, it seems like our building admin have a pretty good handle or grasp on that. And my thought is if an issue arises that they feel needs to be addressed, that they will come to us, but I don't know, thoughts?
I was very happy that all the schools pretty much had a procedure in place for cell phones. And they strongly advocated for not having them during instructional time.
Mhm.
I'm not sure that, I was curious if they've ever had to implement their third time or fourth time on some of them where they're not allowed to bring it back the rest of the year. Like how easy that is to enforce. Hopefully it doesn't get to that, but
I agree with that. And also, was there any pushback from the parent? Like saying, oh no, I want my child to have this in their locker or wherever.
Right. Sure. I mean, we could always ask for that data. You know, we kind of talked about before when the member of the public was here, you know, it's parents are purchasing something for students and now some parents want us to mediate how that is. Like everybody has a hula hoop, but we don't want you to hula hoop all the time or, you know, so it's a little bit like that. You know.
Footloose.
Yeah. You know, and I think there is a fine line about, you know, the world we live in today and, you know, having that communication or that ability to reach out with your students. I mean, so I mean, we could certainly ask, like in the spring or something, ask principals for that data, how many times have they had to enforce level 3 or level 4? But you know, it's just like anything else. There are other procedures in handbooks that, you know, building admin are responsible for the procedures and to follow those and to go along with that. And if there's pushback from parents, then that's something that you sit down and have parent conferences about, right?
Well, I think, you know, Laura's perspective on the cell phone in school use is a little bit, you know, it's not that there is a problem in schools, it's about removing that temptation and that device from students. And I did read through some of the stuff, not all of it. There was a lot provided, but and I think that, you know, the big question is, you know, does the supervisory union want to, you know, look at a policy on cell phones in school and, you know, what that would look like? Is that, you know, just straight up no cell phones or is it limited? I mean, because even if, you know, some of the information that she provided was that you bring your cell phone to school, but it's put away somewhere, not, you know, like not in the classroom, let's say at the elementary level, for example. And so it's not even in the students' reach at any time until they go home. Where I think now they they bring a cell phone to school, it might be in the classroom, but there's still access to it, you know, and I think that's kind of the difference between having a cell phone, having it there and being able to access it at some point throughout the day versus just not having it at all. So, I mean, in my opinion, I think there might be some value in looking at a policy that might do it, but it might be different for elementary or high school. I don't know.
I would be extremely opposed to putting a policy in place. I think it's, to me, it's almost crossing that parenting line. And I think that we have to have, personally, I think we have to respect building administrators to know the culture of their communities and their schools. And even within our own district, every school does not have the same procedure in place because the culture in each school is different. And I guess one parent coming in here because they are looking to satisfy a need.
I don't think she did that. She was bringing educational material to show us that this could be impacting learning. So if you look at it, again, if you flip the coin on the other side, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm not. I don't want to be, I'm not. But I am saying is that if you look at she was looking at it from the perspective of education, which is what we're looking at, is education. And if our culture, we're trying to put together cultures together to become one, you know, if we're saying, oh no, this culture in Rutland Town is going to be different with this culture, what we're trying to come together. And I think looking at it, I'm saying taking a look at it over a period of time to see if in fact that she's got something that's worthwhile to think about. Yes, it was one parent, but and looking at it, asking teachers also, not just administrators, but looking at the people that actually have to deal with the telephones in the classrooms might be a better way, you know, because sometimes because we're saying, oh, we're going to go through the chain of command and administrators are not saying anything. Maybe the teachers, you know, we should talk with them about it too. Is it impacting learning? If it's impacting their educational learning, then I think we need to look at it, not just one fact.
Couple of things. My understanding is, one, she doesn't even have children in any school within the GRCSU. Number two, if we're talking about culture and education, I think then it is our responsibility to educate our students on how appropriate use of this technology, as it is a piece of technology that they are going to have as they move out into the world. I think that making a policy just to make a policy doesn't necessarily change anything. I also think
it's making a policy just to make a policy, Lisa. I think it has to do with, yes, tell me something. When you walk into a classroom, yes, you're going to try to educate your child to not use that phone. I mean, this is worldwide in terms of how many times you sit in a restaurant and look at people and every person in that family is on the phone, including the parents. Okay. Yeah, we could educate all we want about whether the phone, you know, we can educate them. You shouldn't be doing this. You shouldn't be doing this. But these are children who don't always make the best call of things. And yeah, we are here to educate, but I don't think saying we're not even going to discuss it because it's one person that came in and she doesn't have children in maybe the reason why she didn't put the children in there is because there were two phones in there. But I don't think just saying, no, we're not going to do it. We're not going to even discuss it because it's up to the parent. I'm just saying having a discussion about it isn't a bad thing.
what
That's
is discussion?
Can I just,
We have, everybody has it in their handbook. Everybody's using it. It's all in the procedures. Sorry, go ahead, Chris.
no, I just would say, I think I would like for the board, if they want to discuss this, to request from me to get information, because it seems like we're making a lot where, yes, one person came to discuss this. That's one person out of how many thousands of parents that we have. That doesn't mean that there are others that don't feel this way. I do agree also with the fact that we have not, I did not buy one single cell phone for one single student at SU. You know, and I know that
Amen.
if I don't want my daughter to have a cell phone. Guess what? I'm not buying my daughter a cell phone. I don't have a problem with my daughter having a cell phone in school because I didn't buy her one. I think what we have to take a look at is if this is a discussion that the board take a look at it, look at the disruptive aspects of cell phones in school. We need to talk to our admins. We need to talk to our teachers, collect some data. We need to look at disciplinary referrals. I've been on both sides. In 30 years, I've been on all sides of this equation. I've been in schools that have kids lined up and they had like a locker outside where you put your cell phone into it. You've had the pouches. I've seen other have very lax liberal. There are pros and cons to every single one of these approaches. But I think when we talk about this, the digital citizenship, being responsible, like I said, I think it's appropriate. The fact that a third grader has a cell phone, like I said, I don't know why a third grader needs a cell phone, but we also know people say that that's their only form of communication. When I worked in the inner city schools, kids needed cell phones because they left left the point of their apartment to the school. There are a lot of things that could have occurred, and that was their main form of communication. What you also have to understand is you're setting up a battleground in schools and in classrooms between teachers and admin, as George had said, where also you say, can't have your cell phone in school, or there's that, then teachers are engaging in battles. So we have to think about this, how we're going to move forward, and what is the point or the purpose of this. And I'm not saying that it was Laura, or her name. I'm not saying I disagree or agree with her, but I'm saying there's something which I think the board needs to have responsible discussions about and make sure we collect information from the people that are on the front line, which are our classroom teachers, our admins, about
Yes.
what they're seeing in terms of cell phone use. Because a lot of people trump up social media problems. Social media is occurring outside of school. We get a lot of principals are dealing with a lot of issues of things that occurred during the summer, on weekends, late at night, not in school. So I think, so if the board wants to have a discussion about, I think we have to be very careful and set a precedent that when one parent comes, we're going to move everything for one parent.
No,
But
no.
if this is something which, Linda, let me finish. Linda, let me finish. Just a second. If the board would like to have this discussion, that's fine. Then please tell me what information you need from me, and I'll go back and work with our admins, work with our teachers, and we'll have this information so we can have a more informed discussion about where we're heading with this. That's my job, is to have this.
Is it a problem?
I'm curious that despite having all these procedures, do teachers still find that the phones are distracting them? Is it harder to teach the kids? I would like to know that information by.
And I think distracting is subjective too. I think some teachers, what's distracting to one may be distracting to another. We have these problems. Teachers will allow it, other teachers won't. So, I mean, that's in school. Whenever you have a policy or procedure, the enforcement is an issue. And George understands this full well.
What am I looking at here? Is this our policy already?
That is Rutland Town's
Procedures.
Procedures. What you're looking at is what is in each handbook for
Each
each
school?
school.
Yeah,
I
okay.
guess
What's wrong with that?
I guess the issue is this one more thing we need to load on teachers, load on admin to collect data for when the issue did not come from admin, it did not come from teachers. Is this one more thing that we need to take on and discuss in the mix of things we already are dealing with?
Should be,
Excuse me?
or should be. Things we should be talking about.
Oh, yeah. So personally, I think that building admin have addressed it through the procedure in handbook. I'm fine with moving on.
I'll just make one tiny adjustment that, well, I don't know if we're enforcing this. I doubt any kids ever lost their phone permanently, but that's gonna be a problem if that does happen.
I
If you
think,
get a helicopter parent and we say, hey, that's not
Yeah.
coming back to school, they're gonna be like, I have a safety issue and I want to talk to my kid.
Yeah.
So there should be a follow-up to like, if your kid is the problem, then that kid's got to get a phone that's not smart. I mean, these things are a problem, but having communication tool like a flip phone and having access to your kid, that's something we don't want to fight.
Right.
And that'll be the kid that gets in trouble, and that'll be the parent that comes in and says, it's a safety issue that my kid can't have a phone.
And I do think we can look at, from an SU perspective, having an aligned procedure in our schools. This highlights the fact that there are discrepancies, but I've seen issues where even when a teacher collects the students to get back to the end of the day, and all of a sudden if someone takes it or they lose it, which has happened, then all of a sudden then liability, then people will try to I think policy will keep it overnight, or your parents have to come bed it. We're not in that business. The bottom line is we're trying to remove that distraction from the classroom. I think that's what every one of our procedures is doing, is to try to assist our kids with moving this distraction out of the way so it's not there. But even when it's sitting here, we all do it. Everyone on the phone, they heard the buzz or beep somewhere during the course of the meeting, And it is Pavlov's dog. It's conditioned response where we quickly look to see, well, was that me? Was that you? Who was that? I mean, we've had during meetings, phone rings,
Right.
so they're the same distraction we as adults have, the kids have in the classroom. And I think that's something which if the board would like, we could welcome discussion, but my point was, if we're gonna have this discussion, we need to get some information from our admins and as well as, and they can talk to their teachers about some of the frustrations, that they're having, because I know some of our teachers that the procedures, they probably don't want to get into a power struggle with the kid, because if a kid has self out, put away, it's like, I now have to stop what I'm doing to tell that student to put away, and now we've disrupted the whole class.
It just becomes
just-
another mask.
But I think
Amanda?
Oh, sorry. I was kind of going to say the same thing that we were just saying. I feel like, yes, the phones are a distraction, but we're already having behavioral issues and follow through issues, right? So how really is this policed? I just don't think that we have the authority to fully. There's going to be someone somewhere that comes in with some reason, and I just think it's at times out of our reach. So that was my only thought.
Okay, thank you. So I guess, what is the will of the board? Do people want Chris to get information from building admin, from teachers, comes back and we're having this conversation again? You do? All right,
Policy wants us.
Know what's going on, and I think it's right that, Chris should gather that information and bring
we
it
should know what's going on with respect to what.
to the cell phone issues, if there is any.
Truly.
I think if before the board decides to move one way or another, they have the information in hand and then say, okay, we feel that our current procedure handles, but
Like to everyone's point too, that we got a lot on our plate. You don't need to go data mining, but I think having a general survey to all teachers, like, is this a problem?
Mhm.
And if it is, I think one of the best ways to do it, instead of policies that withhold phones are really difficult, but we have this in place. We have a bullying thing in place. Just over inundate the parents with this information over and over and over again. That's not what I'm seeing as a parent coming home. Like, cell phones are a distraction, yes. Bullying's a big problem. Just keep hammering with this. There's only so much you can do. Kids are going to be kids, but if we do find out the staff says this is a problem, let's just hammer the parents with it. We can't restrict them from doing stuff. We don't want that fight, but we can certainly say, hey, we haven't put this on the radar. Let's just smash them with media that says this is a problem in our school.
Knowledge as well.
And your kids are bullying people, and target the people that we know it is. It's it's not hard to find. But I don't think we need to be going round and round and round and have our admin spend a whole bunch of time fact finding when they can just do a simple poll of like, yeah, why we think it's a problem, or hey, I don't care. Because we got a lot to work on.
I agree with that. I like some information. I don't think it has to be a huge report. It's getting a sense of how the teachers feel phones are used in their class and if it's a problem.
I mean, right, is this an issue, and do our current procedures, do you feel they're working to address this? So just, be very basic, but I think then we can.
And I think you'll find too, like, there's gonna be cohorts that are gonna be problems and other cohorts that aren't. But
And I will say, I think one of the things that we have talked to the admin about at length is about technology in our schools, about how we can more appropriately use technology. I do think we have moved out of the COVID and we're back into, whatever normal is, during COVID, during hybrid and remote learning, I think there was an over-reliance upon laptops or technology to assist and sometimes supplant, instruction. I think as we move forward, we have to look at how technology can be an effective and useful tool in moving forward. I think and that's important for us to look at where is that balance, and what's age appropriate, what's not age appropriate. So therefore, in a second grade classroom, really what is appropriate technology as opposed to, say, for a junior or senior. And I know we were just talking about our central office admin, but really looking at the workforce in 10 to 15 years, things are moving with AI and also it's a lightspeed. Like, what does that look like? And, what jobs were readily available and what role does technology play? But also it's like having a kid just sit there and just do a math, 20 minutes of math on their laptop. Is that really appropriate? Or can we find a better way of using technology? I think those are good discussions for,
Sure.
or to to engage in. I think, like I said, the cell phone might be part of that, but so, and, you know, and all of the research that Laura shared, I've read it all. I understand it. A lot of it I agree with, but I think it's also, you know, having worked in a variety of schools in different states, understand that policy doesn't all, I mean, what is the purpose or intent behind a policy moving forward? I think the policy, we're still gonna kind of fall back on some of these same procedures that we currently have in place. It might just be aligning and, as Colin said, tighten some things up where we're not really looking to take, you know, someone's cell phone. As George said, you're banning a cell phone when, you know, for emergency reasons, you know, that's their only form of communication.
Right.
So,
Not even on this, but like further down the line, we should be in sooner rather than later, looking at adding curriculum, especially to our high schools around social media, around technology that we just don't have now. That there's the jobs that exist 15 years from now. As much as we hate these things, they are a distraction. A lot of people make a lot of money using them, and getting our kids access to that, like taking the phone away from a kid who's doing Twitter, but you see these people make billions of dollars. It's like we need to be teaching them the curriculum and what the wave of the future is. As much as we hate it, you know, for age appropriate, I think we should be having.
it can be a blessing and a curse.
Yeah.
Yes. I agree. All right, so I'll have that for October, if that's okay.
That sounds great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bill left. I was gonna say Bill.
He's texting.
That's what I thought. He heard his phone and off it went. Okay, moving on to policies. F25, Section 504, an ADA grievance protocol for students and staff, first read. F11, English learners, first read. E12, flag display, first read. Questions, comments about the three first read policies?
Yeah, so just a side note, F25, we looked at this before as a first read, but in the VSBA policy memo, they had flagged that we had a typo in there, and it was basically the him, her pronouns. We have been changing those throughout all of our policies, and a couple had been missed. So that's pretty much the only change, is that was corrected. And English learners is it's a required policy, and it's formerly limited English proficiency students. They changed it to just English learners. And so this is just the model policy. And then the flag policy is something that we had started working on a while ago. And it just kind of, other policies took precedence, so.
Glad to see that. Okay, A1, role and adoption of school board policy, second read. F27, communicable disease mitigation measures for students and staff, second read. G12, proficiency-based graduation requirements, second read. G14, class size policy, second read. Questions, comments? A motion would be in order to approve the second reads.
I'll move to adopt the second reads.
Motion by Eric to adopt second reads. Discussion.
Just for, that was class size, school board policies.
Yep. So,
A1, F27, G12, and G14.
Thank you.
so it's D to G. All right. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Lisa, just go back to the first reads. Don't we need a motion to pass them on to the boards? Thought that we had decided that we need motions on first read now to move into the next.
Sure. We
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Mike.
Motion by by Mike. Oh my God. To move the three first read policies on. Discussion.
Just remind your local board that this is the time to make edits, because
Yes.
if it comes back, that's it.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. And H4, visits by parents, community members, or media interviewing, filming, videotaping, or recording. A motion to rescind H4 would be in order.
Motion.
Motion by Tina, discussion.
Is it being replaced or just rescinded?
I think it was replaced by E11 maybe.
11.
Yeah.
That's fine.
We talked about last week. It was, I couldn't remember why it was on there for being rescinded and.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. General public comment. No one else has joined us. The next meeting is October 3rd. It should be at the new office.
Yes.
Any need for executive session?
No.
A motion to adjourn would be in order.
Sorry.
Oh,
One thing I almost forgot, I didn't want to bring it up earlier, but we were talking about the VSBA conference.
Yeah.
And the resolutions are coming up.
mhm.
And so maybe on our next agenda, we have that resolution because discussion, otherwise, I can't remember during reorganization if we appointed someone to be the VSBA rep for resolutions.
I don't think.
I don't think we
that.
did. I can't
No, I
remember.
mean, you can actually go on the VSBA website and watch the webinar for resolutions.
Yeah.
We went through that at the last meeting. They have, the VSBA has their own committee and whether they recommend pass, not pass, or, but yeah, we can talk about him here, I guess. I mean, none of them really pertain to anything that,
Okay.
but
Well, I guess that's what I was getting at.
Yeah.
If it's not, I haven't even looked at the resolutions. Obviously,
yeah.
they are, so.
There's a webinar, I think if you go on the front page, it came like in one of the last emails, but, there's a little webinar that just talks about each resolution. I think it's from the VSBA committee, and they will tell you why they say pass, not pass, and like that, so, but we certainly can put it on the next agenda, and, I don't know, just have, you want a copy of each VSBA resolution, or each resolution?
Yeah, I think they're gonna have, like I said, I haven't seen it, but usually they'll put it out there.
Yeah,
I don't know if they've released that yet or what, the VSBA for their recommendations. on
yeah,
it.
we already did that at the last meeting.
Okay.
So,
Well, I haven't seen it yet.
yeah,
I would imagine.
I think that's what it talks about in the webinar,
We got
Thank
9
you.
resolutions.
yeah,
Yeah, we
But-
can talk about it. And if-
okay.
So what we have to vote on, right?
Huh?
So what we're voting on?
So we're voting to make someone a representative to vote for us,
Correct. So
so,
we should probably.
Yeah.
Case it's me, I would love to go over everything and how we would like to vote. I'm not a big fan of just following
That's-
suit with.
that's what I was getting
VSBA
at
says,
is-
Just because they say recommend or not. I'd like, not that we would kill a lot of time, but
oh, I'm not saying
carve out
that.
what we're supposed to be saying.
That's what we did
That's what we
last
should
year.
do.
Yeah.
I'm just
Well, I
saying,
think
you
we
can
should.
go on and listen to them. You don't have to agree with them, trust me. I agree with very little when I sit in the meetings with them.
I don't know if I gotta be an asshole or not, so it's.
You're planning your speech for the regional.
Yeah.
No.
Know how much you all love me at the last meeting.
Or do we have a problem with like, if it like, this is the whole annual meeting, right?
Yeah,
Like the report of directors and stuff.
yeah.
I assume
So-
no one has any want to be on the board.
The board,
And I-
well, we have representatives from our area.
You're one,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I'm up. Linda's running. So, but I can just, have can we just have Christine? They're just like one.
Yeah,
page.
I'll have Christine put the VSBA resolutions and also just Visbit, just,
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, it's probably good for us just to publicly state and then just affirm that, yes, that would like for the two of you to
yeah, how we like them.
vote one way or another. It's probably good to have that publicly
Yeah.
stated.
That way, whoever is voting at the conference, they're voting with what the board wants.
Yeah, our proxy here.
Yeah,
The proxy and the resolution.
yeah, those are two separate things.
Right.
It could be like Congress for you. It's two separate votes.
Right. Two separate meetings.
Yeah.
Goes on Friday morning.
That's a whole month worth.
Huh?
That's a
Whole year's worth of action.
Well, it's a lot with each resolution. so.
I'm on vacation.
All right.
To adjourn.
Motion to adjourn at 7:50 by Mike. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you all very much.
Motion to adjourn.
Thanks. Have a good night.
You too. Bye now.
Good night.